Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. First order of business, actually, first order of business, we want to just verify who's here. In person, we have the fire chief, police chief, and Gloria Moran. By Zoom, we have Ivan Strickon, Dave Bowden, Paul Bowden, Brian Norton, and Kara. Is that Sellingham?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so then the next thing, we just want to review and approve the minutes from last meeting. You don't have any changes or?
I had nothing.
I had nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, these were Brooke, I think.
All
They
right.
were.
I'm gonna make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as distributed.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
We're gonna have two sets of non-public minutes once Jane comes back.
Okay, they're not done yet.
No.
Okay. All right, then we'll move right into the town manager's report.
Lucky me. All right. Okay, so why don't we bring up the CDC guidelines now that the chief's here. So as I'm sure you've all heard, the CDC changed their guidelines in regards to COVID quarantine and isolation to 5 days versus the 10. The state of New Hampshire has yet to adopt those guidelines until further guidance is released. So I didn't know if there was a town policy that needed to be amended, if we're moving in that direction, or what the board feels is most appropriate, I guess, moving forward when it comes to employees and their COVID exposure.
Right now, the policy is 14 days?
10.
10. Okay.
I would suggest that we stick with the 10 because there's, been discussion about whether the 5 is enough and whether people should have a test after 5 or what have you. But until the state adopts the 10, I would say we stay with the 10. That would be my personal opinion.
I did a little reading on it because I was curious myself. I thought, 5 days, are they crazy? What is that about? And it's because of the surge of, I'm gonna say it, I want to say Omicron, but it's not, it's Omicron, right? Yeah. That they have predicted and expect that to be a much, hit a much bigger target, and it's going to deplete resources. So if we've got 10 days and 8 out of 10 officers have COVID and they're out for 10 days, we have no protection. Firefighters, ambulance personnel, that's one of the biggest reasons why they lowered it to 5 days versus the 10 days, so that emergency resources don't completely shut down. So I'm on the fence. I think it should be, the 10 to 14 days to keep everybody safe. However, we run a real risk of not having police officers, firefighters, ambulance personnel, et cetera, town staff, et cetera, if we do that. So I don't know.
I think that, one of the issues that you stated, Timmy, was the fact of labor shortage, particularly in like the airline industry. We've seen 10,000 flights canceled over the past 4 or 5 days because of pilots, baggage handlers, ticket people, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there is a need to recognize that public safety is a concern. But by the same token, safety of the people that they're serving is obviously vital. When they come in contact with just one individual may come in contact with 10. So we don't need people spreading it. But I guess, I defer to what the chief and the two chiefs have to say on the town manager.
Yeah, I'd like to get input from either or both of you. Chad, you want to start?
Sure. Obviously you want to be cautious, and 10 days would be a good cautious approach that we have been doing. This really comes to the forefront when you discuss people getting it, a lot quicker. Potentially if it spreads through the agency or the building or wherever. We're all in the same boat. Public transportation, the 5 days that the CDC said the science being that the onset is 1 to 2 days, you're contagious 1 to 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms. And then 2 to 3 days after, so there's that 5-day window, so that's kind of the 5-day number they're looking at. So they say after 5 days, you come back, but you wear a mask get tested preferably on day 5, and then wear a mask for another 5 days. If you come back to the workplace. That's kind of, they're basing that on the science. Now, is that foolproof? Of course not. There's variables in every situation, pretty much. Obviously, we'd like to be safe. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of what happens if we start losing large numbers. You know, I know that could happen anytime, but you're talking about getting people back a lot quicker. I don't know. It's a 50-50, really. Cheap.
Yeah, so one of the things that you can't predict is how many people are gonna be asymptomatic and continuing to work and spread it, and that could deplete your resources also. You know, with people that are vaccinated and the signs and symptoms a lot less, they're gonna think they just have a runny nose because they're outside for an hour or whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that the state will be looking at this pretty closely, pretty quickly, because we're already seeing it locally where businesses are hurting, losing staff. So I would think we'll probably hear something from Health and Human Services probably in the next week or so, at least a week.
And I thought too, I saw one news article last night on the TV wherein the CDC is rethinking the 5 days themselves.
Oh, I haven't seen
Whether it was too soon or what have you, based on numbers across the country. So again, I think the people have a conundrum, if you will. What are we going to do? And what is science telling us to do?
It's kind of in a high-speed wobble right now.
And a lot of people, vaccinated and boosted are still getting it. Luckily, minor cases, but nevertheless, they still have to be out for that period of time.
Right.
Period.
I guess my inclination would be, if we lower it to 5 days, again, the logic behind, not losing your workforce is important, but I think it's that science that says you're really only contagious for a 5-day period. After that, it's no longer contagious. But I would consider lowering it back to 5 with a test. And we have a testing site in town. It cannot be more convenient for our employees to just right up the street and get a test. And if it comes back clear, have them come back after the 5 days.
Are they doing the 3-day PCR test up there? Is that what they do? It's not an instant test at Westdale?
Do you know what they're doing? What
He
kind of
didn't,
test?
he didn't say that, probably do both.
Oh, okay.
I would say the rapid and the antigen test, the PCR.
Okay.
They'll probably do both, I would think. But obviously, the rapid test, you'll get in 15 minutes, whatever it is, but the PCR, it could be another 3 to 5 days before you get the results. So it
Right.
brings you back to 8 to 10 days being out. If you get
Right.
tested on the 5th day, you're not gonna get it till 8th or 9th day, the results.
Well, and if you are positive, you can test positive for weeks.
Weeks, right.
Afterwards.
The key is when you're symptom-free, no fever, and not taking any medications.
Right.
That's kind of the cutoff there. And then you gotta be 24 to 48 hours symptom-free without taking medications. Then, unless they change that, everything's changing daily, but
And keep in mind too, this policy was adopted July of 20, amended February 21, so it's almost a year old.
Right.
Might be worth giving it a shave and a haircut.
Hmm.
Just a thought.
24 hours. It says, if you're asymptomatic or symptoms are resolving, 24 hours without a fever. So it's 24 hours without a
24 now.
fever.
So 24 hours without a fever,
24
you're
hours.
not contagious.
All right, people with COVID-19 should isolate for 5 days, and if they are asymptomatic or their symptoms are resolving without fever for 24 hours, follow that by 5 days of wearing a mask when around others to minimize the risk. And that's what they're doing. But it's 24 hours without fever for 24 hours.
So that's 6, almost 7 days.
Right.
But that's better than 10.
I mean, I would. I just,
They're doing the
Understand.
same thing, I'm sorry, for exposures. For unvaccinated or people that are more than 6 months out from their second dose, so not yet boosted. It's quarantine for 5 days, followed by strict mask use for an additional 5 days.
I mean, this is likely to be an ongoing, changing recommendation, but.
We followed the
I-
CDC recommendations since from day one.
Right, and if,
Literally, I don't see how we could stop doing that now just because none of us being scientists are unsure.
well, I agree. So the CDC is saying 5 days is
Mhm.
enough, but wear masks.
Yep.
After that.
The state hasn't adopted,
The state has not adopted it yet.
No,
follow the state guidelines. I believe.
we've been following the
Well,
CDC guidelines. When we wrote or edited the COVID-19 policy, we followed CDC guidelines, period. That's what we've been doing as a town all along. DHHS and CDC guidelines, but the CDC guidelines for the driving force. All of our updates come from the CDC, everything we get, yeah.
Health and Human Services is pretty overwhelmed now, just trying to track all this and everything. So
Exactly.
some of this review process might be delayed a little bit.
Right,
You usually get in line with the CDC. though.
normally, you're right.
Well, I guess I would be comfortable going with the 5-day followed by a 5-day mask. So it's still a 10-day period. 5 of it's complete quarantine, 5 of it's return to work,
Provided you're symptom free.
provided.
If you're having symptoms for 16 days, then it's an additional 5 days of mask wearing after your 24 hours symptom free. So it's, if you're asymptomatic, it's a 5 days quarantine. You have to be fever free for 24 hours and then followed by 5 days of wearing a mask. So if you're sick you've got a fever for 3 weeks,
Then-
you've still got an additional 5 days after that. You can't just go
Correct.
your 5 days and
Correct.
come back to work if you still are sick.
Are you on board with that?
Yes, I'm good with
Are
that.
you on board with that?
With 5,
As it was just read, 5
By the
days,
CDC,
Then 5 days of mask.
symptom free,
fever free for 24
fever
hours.
free for 24 hours, wear a mask for 5 days when you come back.
Resolving symptoms, fever free for 24 hours. How do you feel about that, Karina?
I'm comfortable with it.
All right. Can we ask you to put that, well, the two of you put that in-
Update the
in-
policy.
into the policy,
Yes,
and we'll sign that next week?
yes.
Same what you just read.
Perfect.
I mean, is that simple enough to just hand write in right now and we can vote on it? And then.
Well, we can vote on it now and then sign it next week. That's not a
We
problem.
can put it on the thing for you to come in and sign.
All right,
Yeah,
then let's do that as I'll make the motion. We changed the COVID policy to be.
to
um,
follow the
to follow
CDC's new
CDC's.
recommendation of 5 days and 5 days.
until they change it.
Exactly.
Right.
right.
Yeah, literally.
We'll
Yep.
look at it when they change it.
Yep. I will second that motion.
Just to be clear, it's 5 days of quarantine after your
Positive,
symptoms.
people with COVID-19 isolate for 5 days
Okay,
If you're asymptomatic or your symptoms are resolving and you are without fever for 24 hours, then you follow that by 5 days of strict mask wearing when around others.
does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, then that's my motion.
That was my second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's
All right.
only for temp staff, not businesses.
Correct, that's a
This is
town
staff, This is
policy.
our
yeah.
town policy.
Town.
Good, good point. Yes, we're not mandating this on businesses.
Right, right,
This
right.
is the personnel policy. town
Personnel
policy.
Thank you.
Personnel policy,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just in case we get phone calls tomorrow.
while we're on this, I know we've been being asked to reconsider the mask policy, and if we want to mandate mask wearing in town, we've sent out mask
Flyers,
signs available. I've seen them on businesses. I've heard from business owners. Some people are posting them, some people are not. I've seen an increase in mask wearing. I've forgotten it and gone into a store and left to go back to my car.
Done the same thing.
Like I thought, yeah, like it was back a year and a half ago when we used to do that. And it's like,
Everyone who comes into town hall is pretty respectful of it and is
yeah,
wearing a mask, and Lisa has no problem asking them to put one on if they're not, so.
Yeah.
It's been working fine for us.
all right. I just wanted to see if anyone had wanted to bring anything else up. Back to your report then. Thank you.
All right. So I'll go to the top now. Last week we received a couple complaints in regards to the morning traffic heading to Loon. I did speak with Chief Morse about it, excuse me, and he said that he had noticed increase in traffic in the mornings as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was Christmas week or if it's just the time we live in now, and that he had an officer working on it, and that we were hoping to get maybe the powers to be together to come up with a solution for the future.
Want me to come up there?
Sure, come on up.
All right. So we have noticed an increase of morning traffic headed to Loon. I guess there could be several factors that come into play with that. I think it's primarily the obvious that everybody's showing up at the same time, which is different than in years past.
Right.
People would trickle in throughout the day or throughout the morning. And I think because, I don't know if it's pre-sale tickets or seasons ticket holders or what it is that we gotta get there to get parking.
It's milder temperatures, so people are going earlier and not waiting for it to warm up. I
You know,
think
so you're
is part of
playing that,
it.
we gotta get a parking spot, and
Right.
so everyone shows up at the same time.
Right.
Which creates the traffic backup, which creates somebody explaining where they need to go back to. And if you take 45 seconds per car, then it just keeps stacking up. So basically, you need a bigger road. It's like fitting a river through a garden hose. This is all the space we have. So if we can find a solution that alleviates it, maybe even 20% of that, or who knows what percentage it would help.
And you've been working with Loon to
Yeah, we've
figure
been
this out,
talking
because
to
I know they
Brian.
were extremely short-staffed.
They are
Yeah,
shorter
like
staff
everyone else. Yeah,
and, fewer bus drivers.
Right.
I want to say fewer parking attendants, but I know that they all chip in and go out there at times. And I'm sure Loon could speak on that behalf better than I. And of course, they don't want the traffic backup either. you
Of
know.
course.
no,
You have somebody out here, but there's no flags or somebody or some sign that says park here. People just drive right by them. There's the non-believers. It's like the Highland Games. I'm gonna go to the front gate.
right. They'll
They
let me
turn around.
in. Yeah, they'll let me in.
Don't let me in.
Sure.
So yeah, and then you're gonna have the folks that drop their kids off. They have programs. They have to go to the main lot. They're not going to escape route. They still have to go to the mountain.
Right.
But if you can find a mechanism to alleviate some of that, to get them to turn in to park, therein lies the problem.
And that's what you're working on.
That's what we're working on.
Perfect.
Between, we want to get Loon involved, we want to get DOT, we've talked to DOT, we've talked to Loon. But I think what has to happen is decision makers get in the same room at the same time.
Preferably before February vacation.
Absolutely. This is,
Well,
a-
Martin
I mean,
Luther King
Before
weekend.
Martin Luther King weekend.
Oh,
it'll be the
true.
Next,
Civil
2
rights,
weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
So traffic is not a big deal to us. We've seen it before,
Sure,
just not in that direction, except for Columbus Day weekend.
right.
So this is newer.
I mean,
to
there's
us.
always been little backups to load.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I want to point out too that you made it sound like we've had all these complaints. It was literally one person has complained. So, but we are definitely, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 100, we're gonna address it. But
Right.
it hasn't been a ton of complaints. There's been one person that's really dissatisfied.
And it's new. It's
Yeah.
not like we've ignored it. It's new. It started the first weekend we had snow. I think it was a Sunday. That everyone, let's go. And it was like, whoa, we've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And then it carried through with
Right.
vacation week, except for Saturday morning was a little quiet.
Yeah, I imagine.
on Christmas.
No,
No,
Saturday
New
with
Year's.
the rain.
New Year's.
Oh,
when it
New
rained,
Year's.
when it rained, yeah.
Saturday, yeah.
But we're definitely working on it, and I think there needs to be some collaboration or some sort of leeway with maybe a
Sure.
sign being a little closer to the road, not in the road, but some sort of electronic sign that
Sure.
can say turn here.
Well, you're on it, so
We're working on it.
thank you
Okay,
for
good.
that.
I'd be willing to sit in on this, since I talked with the chief, I've talked with Karina, I've talked with the mountain, I've talked with Phil Folio up at Lancaster about the issue and, how we can, as the chief said, bring everybody together, come up with a solution that might work. One of the things, people have been pointing the finger at Loon. Loon has actually done its part, I think, in
Yeah.
restricting the number of tickets sold. But it was like the perfect storm
Sure.
almost.
Sure.
And, the weather, COVID, everybody wanted to get out into the fresh air. But again, there's got to be a mechanism wherein we can control, how quickly we can get people into parking spots. One of the things that Chief and I had a conversation about, I talked with Mr. Norton from the mountain, was the possible usage of electric signs. Again, there are, and Mr. Bolio was great, had a long conversation with him. There are restrictions that prohibit the signs, but there are exceptions for public safety. So consequently, we could look at that as one. But I think, like the chief and Karina said, the sooner we can get everybody together and the fire chief, the better it would be for the town, for those people that are complaining. And, people are paying premium dollars to ski. They don't want to be in traffic either. So the
Right,
sooner
right.
we can get them off the road, the better it is for everybody.
No one wants to be in traffic, whether you're skiing or not.
Right,
No one
right.
wants to be in
And my,
traffic.
my concern of just putting a police detail right there would be to back up the traffic onto the highway as opposed to having backed up to here.
Right.
You're just gonna displace it by just having a detail. You're gonna have the same scenario, people wanting to go to the mountain, people not sure if they should turn in, asking questions. I think if you had a combination of things initially, you could get that maybe
Sure.
mitigated, but it'll be a work in progress.
Okay, well, I think it's great if you
Be
join.
more than happy to.
Yeah, and then the two chiefs.
Whatever it takes.
Brian, I see that you're online. I didn't know if you wanted to chime in with anything or welcome to speak.
Yeah, sure. First, I think Chief hit it the nail right on the head. I've talked to Jeff, I've talked to the chief, I've talked to Jack. I mean, the guests are coming. It's a lower volume than 2 years ago. As Jack mentioned, we're restricting ticket sales. We're not trying to reach those peak massive days that we used to have, where there's a lot of reasons why, COVID being one of them and staffing really being another. And I think what's really different this year is that people are showing up all at the same time. And there's various reasons why. Some of it's just as they learn that they have to wait in traffic, or as they learn that they have to ride a bus when they don't want to ride a bus, or they have to park off site, or the skiing's just better in the morning because it snowed or whatever it is. And instead of the slow trickle, it's happening all at once and it gets backed up, and there's confusion between I want to drop my kid off at the ski program, or I'm coming from Connecticut and I just have to park at escape route, and I don't even, I pull into the lot and I don't even know that this is the ski resort here. I mean, some of the questions we get are people just don't really understand. So I think there's definitely some more information that we can pump out there. An electric sign might help, but the sign's only as good as what people are willing to read. And I mean, we are doing our part. We have our Loon Mountain app that sends, if you're within, if you choose to receive the notification, I should say, if you're within, a certain radius, we're telling you where you're parking, and we're doing everything we can. It's just the guests come when the guests come, and there's nothing more we can do about that other than try to educate them, try to get them to go where they need to go, so there's less confusion on the roads, in the parking lots, and just really try to push that information out to them. And, like Chief and I talked about, an electronic sign might 10-20% might solve some of the problem, and that's better than doing nothing, right? So, we're interested in that, but like Jack said, it's the DOT has to be involved, and it's got to be we have to have the ability to change the verbiage there and use that sign kind of on the fly as things change and adjust. So we can't plan 2 Saturdays from now that at 10 o'clock we're parking here versus 9 o'clock we're parking here. So it's definitely a fluid issue, and we're happy to work with the town. And I mean, I forgot who said it, but our guests don't want to sit in that traffic any more than the folks in town want to see it. So we're happy to work with you guys.
Well, super. Thank you for joining us tonight. Obviously, this is an issue that came up fairly suddenly that we weren't anticipating, and it's good to see that people are already coming up with solutions and ideas. But Jack, if you want to work with the group and get DOT involved, so that the solution that all of the solutions that we come up with, I don't think it's going to be a one trick thing and get a sign and it all goes away, but with those solutions that the DOT buys in and allows whatever we are looking at. So, all right, cool.
Sounds good.
Ryan, thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Thanks.
How many years we've been here, we've always had this problem. You're not gonna cure it. Unless you put an underpass, an overpass going through the town, dropping off balloons.
Well, I guess we're not looking to solve the problem. We're looking to address the problem and make it as less of a problem as possible. Will we find a solution to make it go away? No. Will we build an overpass throughout the whole town? No. But there are things we can do to, like if it's a sign or the location of a cruiser or, signs down there or different traffic pattern down there, whatever. There are ways that it can be, helped, but not eliminated, in my opinion.
Maybe if Loon sold tickets $100 a parking pass for the season, Brian, that might work.
So, all right.
Yeah,
good.
the guy working that gate will get talked to very friendly, I'm sure.
Yes.
Keep them going. Okay.
Keep going.
We'll stay on the complaints because why
Alright.
not?
Yay.
So I also received some complaints about the overnight grooming at the Kank Rec Center. I've spoken with Tara and she explained to me Ryan's scheduling and why they groom the hours that they groom. She understands the concerns and they try to be mindful of the neighborhood that they can, but it depends on Mother Nature and
With the warmer weather.
with the
we
warm
had last
weather
week, yeah.
and Christmas week, there were nights that they had to groom throughout the evening, into the wee morning hours. She said ideally she would like to groom, from 4 or 5 p.m. 4 or 5 a.m. on into the morning, but that's just not always possible. So I just wanted to make you aware of it and let you know that I've spoken with Tara about it and Nate as well. And they will continue to be mindful of the neighborhood the best they can.
And I'm gonna ask, you said received complaints. Again, isn't there just one complaint? One family?
One family.
Thank you.
I think I received a copy of that email. How long does it take to groom the entire, in a normal situation?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
It depends, and I mean, if it's really cold and the conditions are really good, I mean, they can get it done with 90 minutes or so. I mean, you know, it's less than a couple hours, but it depends if it's
Oh, yeah, if we get a big snowfall, a foot of snow, you gotta, I mean,
that, and it was brand new this week. They just opened the day after Christmas. So, you know, there was moving some stuff around and pushing some of the, you know, made snow onto the tow line and maintenance stuff as well when you just opened. So, you know, that wasn't the perfect 90-minute groom. It probably could have been 3 or 4 hours. I don't know.
no, I
Yeah.
mean, again, it's not a normal situation.
Right, right.
I guess that's the point I'm getting at. In normalcy, it could be groomed within quote, regular hours, so
Yeah,
that we're not
right.
interfering with the sleep
And the weather
habits.
too, it was
of the
warm, so
bears.
if you can't
can't
groom
groom
at
it,
4 in the
it's warm.
afternoon.
Right.
It's mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
You gotta wait till it can set
Settles
up.
a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, especially with them knowing they were going into their first week of operation and it was gonna be busy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a Saturday in March. We're
But I
talking-
did hear from a whole lot of people that the camp was awesome. And
that's
the
good.
the boatloads of kids had a great time.
Was it a good week up there?
Oh,
for you?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Good.
Kids are having a blast.
Good.
Absolutely. And there's penny candy. It's not necessarily a penny anymore, but there's still penny candy.
Can
You
you
can
call
still-
it penny candy?
You can still get Swedish fish, at the camp, yes. It's packaged because of COVID, but you can get them.
Moving forward, there was another grant that the Department of Justice just released this last week that they are looking for grant applications to combat the relaxed COVID-19 policies. So this might have to be a little bit crafty on how we present, an argument that it's due to the relaxed COVID-19 policies, but there's about $2 million for the state. Any entity can apply for it. So keep it on our radar. I think we might try to be creative and, think of a project for it. I mean, like I said, but it specifically deals with the relaxed COVID-19 policies. So we'll have to think about it, but it's something to keep on our radar for 2022. It will be open until June of 23, so we have a little bit of time.
Great, thank you.
No worries. And then this is just a quick FYI. Last week, Ryan, myself and Lisa sat down while Carol was out on vacation and we got through the backlog of sign permits. So they've all been issued, they've all been addressed. So at least that's something
How
off.
many was that?
Six or so.
Good,
Um,
excellent.
That they had been back to September, but we've reviewed them, called the contractors, and those should be good to go moving forward.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Kind of related to that, I saw that we had an email, or a series of emails about this guy who wants a land use compliance certificate, but there's no architect, there's no.
Yeah, everyone's
there's no-
disappeared.
Everybody's gone.
Right.
Tanner and South America. Central
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. Are you familiar with this?
Which one is it?
It is 6
Cameron
Blue
Purdy.
Rocks Lane.
That's an old one.
It is
Yeah.
old, yeah.
Okay, I noticed this was in the folder. Was there any discussion?
This was in the folder prior. I didn't put this in the folder. I don't know if Jane did before she left or if Carol did. I
I would
think it's,
assume Carol, because it's, what do you do? How do you, as far as the town's standards go, we can't give him one. A land use occupancy certificate, right?
Which
Yes.
one, does it say which of his contractors or had a country?
Like 4 of them.
almost all
Multiple,
of them.
yeah.
The architect and the contractor.
The architect retired
The
and disappeared
electrician?
years ago. The business partner is not comfortable signing off on the project on the architect's behalf. Rob Roy moved to Central America before the project was completed. And the contractor who he left behind moved to Montana at the end of the project.
Right. So what do we do with that? I mean, we've got to be able to do something to give him,
I just didn't know if this was here because we were, I mean,
I think Carol's looking for guidance.
I think Carol's looking for guidance on it. Yeah, I think she's looking, does the board have an opinion on how we should move forward in instances like this?
I mean, we can't stop. We can't make people from Central America and Montana to come back here, number one. And we can't, someone who's invested all this money in a house can't say, well, you can never live in it ever because
Well,
that guy moved to
It must
Montana.
be occupied. He must be looking to sell it. and He needs the land
Needs-
use compliance certificate to sell it probably.
I think it just needs to be documented that we're issuing a land use compliance certificate. However, no engineer has signed, or architect has signed off it, no contractor has signed off on it, and just make that all clear and make them sign an affidavit that they understand
They
that.
understand that.
And will relay that information to any future buyer, that they'll know that, this has not gone through a regular process.
Basically, the current owners gonna have to take full responsibility for
And then someone will buy it knowing that
everything.
it wasn't signed off on, and they could hire, or they could make the seller
They can
hire
make the sellers in
Hire
purchase and sales, and you
and-
need to hire an
engineer to,
sign off that it's structurally sound or built to code.
what, yeah.
They seem to know where both of the individuals involved. In fact, there's a drink named after the architect, Rob Roy. Don't they, can't they reach out to him as partner or something? And, get in touch with Davy Johnson in Montana? And, if Davy was the last one to leave the shop, i.e. the contractor.
Ideally, they could, but we can't make them.
And we
If
don't
you're
have
down in
to- we don't
Central
have to- we
America, I
don't have-
can't make you.
No, but we don't have to issue a land use permit either. And the contractor knows that he has some obligation of, she or they could be subject to litigation with those individuals. I'm sure that was part of their initial contract.
Probably
They have an
review the
obligation.
language in the original permit that was issued, depending on the year, because things have changed over the years.
Right.
Probably need to review the initial land use permit. See if it has in there, it needs construction control affidavits and all that before issuance of a land use compliance certificate.
So this is not a newly constructed house then that,
I'm not sure what that, we've got
Okay.
so many. I can look into it for you and get back to you on it.
all right,
Why don't we do that?
Let's
I
do
would
that.
suggest and then bring it back
Bring
for
it
us.
I'll
If
bring
we have
back
to.
whatever I
yeah,
can
right.
find to you.
let's do it next week.
Okay, put it on for
If you
next
can.
week. Yeah.
Yep, you'll have it.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
One more thing that
Yeah.
I just was asked to put on the record for this evening is I did receive a request for information regarding the West Street project from Bill Kahn. How much was the bond? How much was the Nelson bid? What we paid to Nelson, what we paid to Calder, Coleman, KB Partners, and the legal costs. They would like that for the next selectmen's meeting. So I asked Jonna to put those figures together for me, and we should have it for the next meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
It's all public record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Should be easy to put together. She said she was closing out those books anyways for the end of the year
Great,
stuff,
yeah.
so she should have them all together.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I also spoke with Nate, and we will have for the next meeting as well, a proposal for the water and sewer tap fee additions that we were gonna add for the additional appliances. He said an additional appliance like a dishwasher or something like an ice maker is relatively low use, has low water use. He said, new age dishwashers run with less than 4 gallons, each cycle. So we're gonna use it as like an accessory sink or a bathroom or something along those lines. And then
Okay.
also for the hot tub, we looked at, a 6-person hot tub and the average weight, the average gallons of
Gallons,
water
yeah.
versus a 10-person hot tub. And we're gonna come to some middle ground to make that more of a gallon size rather than the commercial and residential. So we'll have that for next week for you.
Perfect.
That's good. And those are two of the things that were on my list.
All right.
So anything else before we move on?
I don't have anything else this evening. It was a quiet week with the holiday,
Good. Other than the traffic.
other than the traffic.
The parking lot use across or at and across from the fire station, are we,
Has not been an issue.
okay,
I sent an email with what the discussion was.
Yeah.
and there
No
hasn't been any more infractions. They've.
Okay.
They're keeping them all on their property.
Excellent. So we don't need to do anything right now with, I mean, I think we thought there was enough signage there.
Yeah, I can definitely still put something together to add that last tagline in the traffic ordinance.
Yes, please,
And,
thank
and I
you.
went and looked at the mill, I don't know what you want to call it anymore.
The real property, yeah.
It does say no overnight parking on the town portion.
Oh,
It does.
whoops.
Okay,
So 3 out of the 4, and I say 3 out of the 4. The one down near us does not, but this lot, the fire, one near the fire station, that one all say no overnight parking.
Never noticed that. I only
Me
only
neither.
parked there once, when they redid the roads a few years ago, when they were working in the evening, when I got home and I couldn't get out Pleasant Street, so I parked. And then got up the next morning, couldn't find my car, and went, oh, yeah. now I remember."
I think that's used for a property up on Pleasant Street.
for overnight parking?
The one that basically has no driveway.
The Airbnb, or the short-term rental, I should say. They have 2 spaces at the short-term rental, so,
And
yeah.
when they have more. I think they-
Right.
but Hasn't been an issue.
Honestly, I'd rather see them there than at the side of Pleasant Street, because then John Hamm gets called at 4 AM to tell them, and once his phone rings, then I'm awake, so.
Okay, so there's. And we can still look at making changes to the parking ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
At least there would be a mechanism there to enforce it
right,
in the event that.
okay. Couple of the things, we have a new proposed contract from the assessing company.
Yes.
And it's the same rates. And it's an hourly rate, so I mean, it depends on how many pickups there are and appeals there are and all of that, but it's the same same rate from the contract that we just ended. It was a 3-year contract. I see no need to change it based on what we get, but John is the one who does a lot of the interaction with them, and I mean, I don't want to just sign this and then find out that she's not been happy or wants changes or this or that.
Jonna reviewed it before she gave it to us. and
Okay.
She asked for my review of it. DRA has signed off on
I
it, so
saw
all the
that.
language is,
John is happy with it?
and John is happy with it. My only recommendation would be is for the next cycle, that we, rather than doing a 3-year term, do a 2-year term, so it coincides with the reval. I think every so often, it's not a bad idea to look at different contractors, to get different prices and to get different quotes. We kind of get locked in with CNP if we do 2 3-year contracts, because then we're always out of cycle with the reval.
Gotcha.
So I would suggest signing into the 3-year for this year, but,
Next year. get
but
two.
next year, only do the 2. Or in 2020,
Because the reval,
it's
Every
every 5,
5 years.
right?
So we do a 3-year now and then a
And then a
2-year.
2-year, so we're always, so our reval, the 5-year contract for the reval ends the same year as our general assessing.
The
ends.
other side of
Good
that,
idea.
though, is that there are only so many companies that do the reval.
Sure,
And our 5th year is one of the busiest years for towns around the state. So if we only do the 2-year, do we run the risk of not finding someone?
I think we would, obviously, we would complete the full reval, complete the 5th year with them. And I say on the 5th year, on the first day of the 5th,
Oh,
5th year,
gotcha.
January, we put it out and we know what we're doing before the end
gotcha.
of the year, or the summer, we put it out. So we know what we're doing going into the new year for the new contract
Gotcha,
year.
okay. Okay.
There are not tons of companies, I mean,
There's
you're
not,
correct, I
right.
mean, there's only a handful of them. But I think that's also a time to negotiate terms and dates and all that.
Well, I
stuff as
talked to John a little bit too, and it was that, oh my gosh, busy time
Right.
trying to get that tax rate out. That I want to see if, and talk to CMP, and maybe you could do that, and we'll take that off of John's plate.
Yeah.
But to see if we went in 4 years, did a complete reval instead of 5 years, are there less towns in the queue on that 4th year than there are on the 5th year? Because on our 5th year, there's a ton. The neighboring town, I talked to their town administrator, and they're 3 years, I think, behind us, and a breeze, because there aren't many towns in the queue
For those
in
years.
that, for the complete total revale.
Okay,
So
so if we did it a year early
if we
or
did it, I
something.
know DRA won't let us go a year extra, but they
Right.
would probably let us go a year early
Sure,
to get into a better queue, so we don't run into this where our tax bills go out late and whatnot. So,
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely something to look into. I will say that, you
Yeah.
know, I've had a great working relationship with CNP.
oh, they're fantastic.
I've worked with them both in the Valley and in Camden. I think they have a lot on their plate constantly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, if you know, it's worth looking into, but I wouldn't be surprised if they told you the next 3 years it's gonna be,
Well, see, the other town I spoke to, they have the same, see, they do CMP as
they
well.
do
so,
CNP as
right.
well. So we got, definitely worth
And
looking
it could be
into.
That'd be
but-
worth the conversation.
Yeah.
It's a great idea in theory.
Yeah.
But
It could be the year before is even busier. I don't know.
Who knows, right? Who
if it's not
knows?
gonna, if it's
Right.
not gonna solve the, that
The
fifth
time
year,
crunch
Exact
in,
time crunch.
right, in November, it's
Right,
right.
it's
Something
gonna
to
cost
look
us
into,
extra
yeah.
to do it in 4 years, not
Right.
extra, but we'll be.
Right.
We'll only have 4 years to put aside
Right.
money for
Right,
what we
instead of five,
normally do
right,
5
right.
years.
Well, and also we could, you know, there are provisions in there that so many, every day after their deadline, you know, is money taken off the contract,
Right,
you know,
right,
that
right.
could be negotiated at a higher rate based on previous years or X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
question, did we put this out to publicly bid? Or do you have to put it out to publicly?
You don't have to, but I always,
Is there
in
a
my
thre-
personal
Is there a
opinion,
threshold? And I'm coming from my own previous background with state law, any contract over $10,000, you had to attempt to get a minimum of 3 bids.
I don't know what your procurement policy states. I don't know if you have a deadline or you know, after X number of dollars, you have to do it. It's been my experience that every so often, it's good to put things
Oh,
out like,
absolutely.
you know, your assessing, your auditing services, your heating fuel, your sand, your gravel, you know, all those kind of major purchases that you're going to do every single year that are, you know, bottom line affect. the-
Yeah, it
the
gets
tax
too
rate.
easy to just, yep, okay, fine, next. you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's why, you've got to, like you said, you're studying and you know these people, I don't. But again, I'm going by, whether there's a state statute, state law that requires you. or
No, I don't
something.
believe so.
Okay.
I do believe that we have something in our procurement policy.
That requires so many bids.
Well, I don't know what, what it extends to, what types of, but I know like in, when we were talking with like the excavation, site work type stuff that we do, that I believe it was $15,000 we had to,
Go on to the-
right, and that was not a state law, but that was a town.
Just
Sure.
town procurement
Town
policy.
I'll
policy.
pull up your policy tomorrow and take a peek at it, and if I have any
Tammy's
suggestions.
looking at it right now.
Of course she
I'm
is.
working on it, yes.
But for
He
my
knows
own,
me.
I guess, peace of mind, I'll look through it, and if I have any suggestions for change, I'll bring them to the next meeting.
Do you want to hold off on,
No, I mean,
Sign-
the
sign
town
these?
manager's comfortable, she's dealt with them.
I mean, they've been good with us.
Like I said, they're great to work with personally. I don't have any issues with them, but I do know that I think it's a common occurrence during the reval in the final couple months. It always seems to be, we're
And
always
this is the
cutting it
letter from the
close.
state saying that they have no problem with that contract.
They're in good standing with it.
Yeah, and the contract is.
And the state does make suggestions for change.
They
I've seen
did.
that, yeah,
They did previously.
sure,
I remember the letter came back and it was something that they wanted changed.
definitely. I know that, in the previous town, we had some changes that needed to be made.
Is there a fee in this contract?
Go to the
Yeah, the
second page, and
tables,
there's
yeah.
3 different ones. One is for the regular work they do, the pickups, and one is for, one more page. Regular, I think that's regular, and that's the appeals
Oh, per
Yeah, per hour.
per hour.
hour.
It's an hourly
It's
fee.
an hourly fee.
And
And
what
that's,
was the cost last year?
it's the
Same.
same.
No, not the hourly, what was the total
Oh,
contract cost last year?
Well, the reval year is always more expensive than
Because of the appeals.
because of the appeals and because of the time that it takes. So I don't know exactly what you spent last year, but I don't think you can use it. Usually it's significantly more, about 25% more in the final year.
Okay. If you could just make a note to get me
Sure.
what we paid in.
Oh, actually, I have the expenditures right here.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you right now.
in executive contracted services?
So I don't have it broken down right now. It looks like executive contracted services, we've spent 112,
But that's
113.
everything.
Yeah, that's everything. I don't have it broken down.
If we could,
I'll look into it and I'll.
just shoot me an email.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right, do someone want to make a motion to accept the contract for assessing services for 3 years by Comma from Nita Perkins?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Water shop fees we're gonna do next week. I wanted to talk about the tax collector position. I know you got some applications. We probably should do that in non-public if we're gonna talk about specific applicants and where we stand with that, unless there's anything we want to talk about in public that we can talk about in public.
I can tell you that, so before the holidays, we reached out to the applicants that we received their
Yeah.
resumes from.
Yeah.
And told them that we were going to push it off until after the holidays.
Okay,
I would like to understand everyone's roles and responsibilities currently before we put another job in the mix.
okay,
So we can understand what that person's roles and responsibilities are going to be.
okay,
When we emailed all the applicants, one of them withdrew their application, they got another job. So
Okay.
we're down to 2, the other 2 responded and we're fine waiting until after the new year.
Okay.
So I was waiting until Jane got back to kind of discuss with her. Like I said, I want to understand everyone's roles right now and to see if maybe we need to realign things or clearly, I want to have a clearly established job description for this person before we just bring another person on.
perfect.
So,
And have you, or could you speak with Sandy and just let her know that this is not something that you intend to do immediately? Sandy came out of retirement to help us out.
To help us out, right?
Exactly.
She probably wants
So
to get out of here.
yeah, exactly. I mean, she loves us, but she's ready to leave. No, just communicate that with her so that she doesn't go, wait, I thought you were hiring someone.
Well, and we've also talked about contacting Vision and having potentially Lisa trained on how to put in tax bills and to put in the data, because it shouldn't just be one person who knows how to put in tax
Right.
bills. I mean, we all can chip in and it's relatively simple, it's data input. So we talked about getting Vision on board, especially because they just did an upgrade and we have their newest version. I think now's the time to get a full,
Yes,
not full staff, but to have a few of us who know how to do it.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we should wait till the new tax collector comes so she can be part of that as well.
That's kind of what we were thinking.
Perfect. You need to witness this, if you don't mind.
and how have the taxes been coming into the office?
Oh, they're coming in. Money is rolling in. While Sandy was out, both Jonna and I punched in tax bills, so the money, nothing was left
Right.
undeposited, so that was great. But Sandy's been back full force, punching in all the tax bills, so money is rolling.
Nothing stayed. I mean, we even did afternoon deposits from the day
We
before,
went- yeah.
closed, so that nothing.
What's
The
left?
only
We
thing
gotta
left
go back
anywhere was what
twice,
was
right.
in the post office box on Sunday when it was closed. That was it. So they all got put in.
All right, is there any update on the cleaning contract?
Yes and no.
She
I can take it.
she can keep that and get that to Jonah.
We have confirmed that Twin Rivers Cleaning is no longer cleaning the municipal building, neither upstairs nor downstairs. We received a final bill from them a few weeks ago. So I have told the chief that he can move forward with his cleaning solution for downstairs, and that I was awaiting for Jane to get back
Got
to get a better understanding of how we are cleaning the building upstairs currently. And I've asked Tara for her cleaning crews contract to get some quotes so we can review it.
Excellent.
She's on it.
Okay,
And the library, we talked with the library.
We've talked with the library as well. They are satisfied currently with Twin Rivers.
Okay.
And they are there 5 days a week. We spoke to them last week and they do fogging 2 of the days and then they're cleaning the rest of the 3 days, but they are comfortable and they would like to stay with Twin Rivers. We also potentially discussed maybe, for 23. I mean, we do spend a lot of money in cleaning when you break out all the 3 buildings. I think when we added the 4 buildings together, it was $70-something thousand,
Close to it,
70,
yeah, 60.
60
yeah.
something. So I mean, that's the cost of a full-time employee.
Yeah.
Gloria, you looking for work?
I'm gonna have to keep sending me a tax bill like this.
So that's
Taxes
something I
went
think
down,
for
Gloria.
potentially in 23. But as of right now, we're
No, you don't
figuring out a
want,
solution for
you don't
upstairs.
want locals here anymore.
it's not too late to do that this year.
We discussed that.
Okay.
The only thing is that Tara had recently signed into a year contract with her cleaning crew. So it would definitely have to, her portion of it would have to be subtracted from it, which is a significant portion of the
Of
overall
that to make
cost.
the,
Yeah.
okay,
But something to potentially look into for 23, I think.
okay.
Good.
Then yeah, keep that in mind when you're signing a contract, that we don't want a 3-year contract. because
No,
we might
no, no,
not
no.
want-
And to be honest, looking at the Twin Rivers contract, it's more of a scope of work than it was actually
I
a
s-
contract.
I
There was
know.
no terms, there
I
was
know.
no, termination clause or anything along
I
those
remember
lines.
reading that going like, okay, what's the process for terminating it? Well, they're gonna clean the bathrooms is about all it says.
That's about all it says. It really,
Off
it
the
truly was a
floors and
scope of
scope of work.
services. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, we'll be, we'll have a little bit more
Remember,
of a
that was before I
systematic
was a
approach.
select-
Yeah.
I have a
But-
question.
Sure,
I don't have any sort of contract with the person that's gonna clean downstairs. I put it in my budget, but we've not discussed anything like that. I guess it would just be considered open-ended at this point. If that's
Mm.
good or not, I don't know what your feelings are.
I think considering who you're with and whatever, I think I'm comfortable with that.
There has to be some type of performance in there. I mean, if you're not happy and you want to terminate, not that it may happen, but that you want to, I mean, I think that you should have a contract with some standard language in there. Doesn't have to be, 20-page document, just 1 or 2 pages. I mean, that's my personal
But
opinion.
it's gonna be
That's fine,
someone
too.
who's already your employee, is that correct?
No,
You have a
no.
copy of her insurance, correct? Because she's,
I don't have anything.
yeah, she get a copy of her insurance. I know she's insured, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Get a
Okay.
copy of her
one the things I'm
insurance and then
saying.
she'll be 1099, yeah,
Sure,
Yeah.
exactly.
and she's aware of that.
yeah, we definitely need the
Yeah.
insurance certificate.
Yes.
And she has that.
And I imagine if she's a professional cleaner, that she deals with scope of services and scope of work all the time, so it would be relatively simple to draft something together.
Just take an old contract somewhere, or just change the names to protect the innocent.
Yeah. All right, did you have anything else for
No, sir.
tonight, Jamie?
I wanted to mention the art party
Mhm.
at the mill. What, was that Saturday night? It was Saturday.
Thursday night.
Thursday night, so whatever.
Thursday night.
It was the other night. I don't know, the holiday weeks to me.
I think it
just
was
all run into Each
Thursday.
other.
It was Thursday.
Okay, it was awesome. I didn't stay long. We walked around and checked everything out and bought our tickets and whatnot, and there was a ton of people there. Kevin does an amazing job with the art parties. Every single one has done a great job with them. And they raised over $7,000 to go
Awesome.
towards the skate park, which is just amazing. Kevin, thank you so much for all you do for the skate park. It's well done.
Yes, I'll echo those comments.
Mhm.
Good job, Kevin.
And for our cool stuff. We won cool
Yeah.
stuff.
There's my weddings right there.
Yeah, mine are in a pile over there.
Or
I know. I can't help it.
All right,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's it. We do have a non-public tonight.
I don't have anything for non-public, but I just wanted to remind everyone that the first budget committee is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Evening. At 5:30.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
Public comment.
Yep, public comment. Gloria,
Excuse me, just,
Oh.
go ahead. I'm just gonna, I made coffee, I gotta grab it.
How do you, for these type of raises in our taxes?
The
How
taxes,
can you,
Gloria, the taxes did not go up. The taxes actually came down. The assessment may have gone up, but the tax rate went down.
and how did the value of my property go from $57,000 to $149,000?
I have no
It's-
idea since I
it's-
didn't do the assessment.
the,
I mean, I didn't
The
do a damn thing.
assessment-
I put a roof on my busted house because the insurance company said I had to.
correct.
That's
Assessment
not my
is,
land, that's my house.
assessment is based on the market value of your property.
And that's the problem. Because the rate things are going, I don't believe you'll find too many local people living in this town anymore. It'll belong to Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, where the hell ever else. Because the local people are not gonna be able to afford this. I live on $1,400 a month. That's what I live on. And out of that comes all of my bills. I don't earn the type of money that the majority, probably Tamara makes, or the new town manager makes, or you or any one of them. So what happens? Do I end up having to sell my property so that I can survive the rest of my 5 years of living?
It's a complex problem,
It's a very
But-
complex problem.
but when you say the
Because we're
local,
being punished because all of the out-of-staters have come in and bought all the property up.
or because all of the local people who are selling their houses are getting way more value for them by selling them to someone from Connecticut, Massachusetts, than they would to sell it to someone who lives and works in the town of Lincoln and Woodstock. So it's two-edged sword. I mean, you can't blame the people from Massachusetts. You can also blame the people from Lincoln who sold that house for way more than it is historically been worth, because someone from Massachusetts is willing to pay for it. It's supply and demand. There's a big demand for houses in Lincoln, but that demand is coming from out of state, basically second homeowners.
But in actuality, not even second homeowners, they don't live here. 90% of them don't live.
Right,
here.
they're second homes. They live somewhere
They
else.
rent them out and-
Correct.
and do whatever. So
Well,
we're
Gloria,
getting,
quick question for you. Did you actually figure what, and do a calculation on what last year's taxes you paid versus what the tax were this year?
I
Because
got them
remember,
both right here.
no, but I mean, remember the second half of that bill is a portion of what the total taxes for the year was. When I looked at my own bill, I thought it went up at $1,600. I was shocked, but it didn't when I actually did the calculation versus what I paid last year. So, I mean, take a look seriously at what you totally paid last year and what your total tax bill is this year. Even though the assessment went up, the tax rate went down substantially. So it may not be as much as you think. But again, I don't know your numbers. I don't really, want to know them, but for your own good, don't get upset about
Upset. I'm gonna wonder, okay, next time I end up in a hospital and I got that hospital bill, and I got to pay my taxes.
Well,
I mean, I ended up in the hospital from falling at your library.
just so you understand how this works, okay? The taxes, the town portion of the tax, first of all, school, state, and county, we have nothing to do with other than they tell us what to collect and we send you the bill.
Based on
But-
what?
Based on what their appropriation is or is required by the town, okay? divided by our tax base. Okay, so the school district tells us how much they need, or they are guaranteed by the school district vote. The state sends us an assessment and the county sends us an assessment, whatever that number is, we bill you for. We have no control over it. The only thing we do have control over is the town taxes. And for this year, the bill you just got, the total amount of taxes we raised, all right, is nearly identical to what was raised last year, but because our tax base grew, right, more houses were built in the last year, that the tax rate went down compared to last year, all right? We raised the same amount of money with more houses being built. What has changed is the fairness, okay? So if your house went up in value this much and someone else's house went up in value a little bit, you might be getting more of that same tax burden as it was divided last year. You're paying more because you were historically paying less than your fair share. Your house, no one's house has been updated in value, that has not been reassessed since the reval 5 years ago. Okay, so it was all the same for 5 years, unless you added on a porch or garage or whatever, then it changes your assessment. But if your house is just the same for 5 years, you pay the same portion for that 5 year period. So we have not increased the taxes, okay? Some people's went up, some people's went down. And it's based on the market value of the property. And with that being said, the market value of property of these houses right here in downtown have gone way up because of the demand, because of local people selling them to out-of-state people for sky-high dollars has increased the market value of kind of this whole class of houses. Now, you know, if townspeople wanted to enact some stricter rules as far as, you know, Airbnbs, but again, there's state rules that prevent some of that. Or, you know, there's some things that could be done, but the town has not seemed keen on restricting property rights. Okay, and I know you've spoken about property rights before and threatened to shoot people with a gun if they're gonna cut your tree that's in their easement. I remember you sitting here saying that. So I know you're in favor of property rights, but you can't choose which ones you want, okay? If you could sell your house right now for certainly more than you could have 5 years ago because of the demand. So in overall, we're not.
But what happens if you're one of the ones that really doesn't want to sell the house? When you lived on the same street for 79 years? But in actuality, they're gonna force you out of your houses because you can't afford to pay them. I mean, how many people, do they still in the tax report, town report, put in who has or has not paid their taxes for how many years?
I
They
don't
used
know if
to,
we print the tax liens.
We don't print it. It is public record,
information.
but we don't print it in the town report. But it is.
it used to be in the
it
town
is
I
report.
remember it used to be.
I think the amount, without specific names, is in the town report.
Back
Yeah, I
taxes,
went
so-
through it today. And I didn't see
You
it.
didn't see it. I don't remember. I remember it used to be in there.
Yes.
But again,
Tim, did you pull it
well,
back?
that's interesting information. It doesn't affect what you pay.
Just what was online.
We
Yeah.
base
I
The-
can't see the old one.
portion of your taxes on the total assessed value. If someone doesn't pay their taxes, that burden doesn't get shifted to the people who do. It becomes a lien on that property.
Right.
Okay, and we collect interest on it, and then we can lien it, and then we can take it. Which we've not taken many properties in my term here.
And when we get to that point, normally, that historically, the town has tried to work with those homeowners that are.
Which we've done that before.
Absolutely.
We've done that
Quite
before.
often.
Tax agreement.
Yeah,
Quite often.
Yep.
Yeah.
And-
The
and
last thing we want to do is take anybody's houses.
right.
For any
The only properties I remember us taking were properties that basically were unbuildable. No one wanted them. They didn't want to pay the taxes on them. They're a piece of ledge like this and they're this big.
Literally, I think those are the only
Two
pieces
that I'm
that we
aware
own,
of.
and they're unbuildable.
I mean, we're not taking people's houses. In my 10, whatever years here, we haven't taken anybody's.
Having
houses.
said that, if chief decides to not pay his taxes for 10 years, we'll probably own your house. So don't go that route either, anyone that's listening.
You can
That's
have it.
not a free pass.
Well, and I would also want to make sure that you are enrolled in any sort of exemption or credit
Oh,
I am,
program that
believe
the
me.
town
It took
has.
11 years of my husband being dead before I was told that I was eligible for the veterans widow's benefits.
Sure, but there's also, and there's also elderly,
Oh,
there's
I'm sure I've done that.
exemptions and
Believe
credits, there's
me,
also the.
I am old, I have gotten that.
Okay.
There's also a tax deferral program for the elderly and low income. The abatement form also
Right.
has a provision for low income. So I would make sure that we're
You know, we
investigating all
should
those avenues.
Reach out to maybe the Grafton County Senior Citizen Council to see if maybe we can, even if it's a Zoom, something somehow, line up the right person to
Right.
inform these folks that there
Yeah, good
are
idea.
things out there.
There are definitely
It may
things
not
out
be
there.
you or me or whatever, but maybe there's somebody that can do something more for the older folks in our community that are.
Well, and not only town programs, there's also state programs,
Exactly.
like the state has a
Exactly.
rebate program where you can, if you prove to them that you've paid your taxes, you get X percentage refunded to you if you
Right.
meet certain criteria. So we
Talk to
can look
Tara,
into
they may
those
be
things.
doing that
right.
over there already, that maybe we could put some links or something on our
Sure.
website or whatever, but Tara would have that, the contact anyway.
Right, we just want to make sure that you're, enrolled in every avenue you can.
Yeah, I just hate the thought of having to leave my town.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to live in it anymore.
Totally understandable. If you want to stop in later in the week, I can make sure if you're, whatever programs you're not enrolled in, we can get you the application forms too.
I mean, I know that Jane has been a great help to me, and I
She's
was asking
fantastic.
her, she should have taken over the tax collector and everybody else's job because she knows them all.
If only she could be 10 people at once. That would be
It
great.
would be great.
Yes.
It would be
I
great.
agree, I agree.
I honestly think when the four of you are sitting up there talking, okay, what is the purpose of that microphone there? Because you're sitting there and nobody here can understand
It's
one
record,
blessed word you can say.
it's recording everything, and all of the recording and the video that's in there of anybody else online gets posted on YouTube. So you can go back online and watch the meetings. For those that can't come or can't make it or choose to not come out in public, or they can watch it on their computer. So that it's recording that. And Jane uses it to do the minutes.
Well, I know I paid mine today.
We thank you for
I didn't
that.
want to get kicked out tomorrow.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
All right, any other public
Especially for me
comments?
The rest of the week.
Ivan,
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Ivan.
First, I'd like to welcome our new town manager to Lincoln and wish you all a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
I certainly won't bore you with my background and credentials because I'm sure everybody in that room knows as much as they need to know about me. Thanks to my friend Jane, I would assume that you got the email that I sent with the copy of the Littleton Courier last week in regard to Franconia issuing a mask mandate. I'm not going to torment you again tonight. I'm just letting you know that towns are doing this. There's several towns down in the south end of the state that are doing it. And I'm glad to see that you're following CDC guidelines. You could go one step further. Part of the CDC guidelines are recommending people in indoor locations to mask up. So just something to think about. You also may want to take a look at, and I'm anticipating, this week's Littleton Courier and the op-ed section, little write-up that I did. May want to take a look at that. And just let you know that we have to take responsibility for our citizens, keep them safe, and especially not to overload our healthcare system, which unfortunately is happening both at Littleton Regional Healthcare and at Spear Memorial. And by masking up and keeping people safe and keeping them out of the hospital, we take the burden off our healthcare system. So that's all I have to say tonight, just food for thought.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you.
All right, have a safe week. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kevin, you have your hand up?
I do. I just, if I can, public participation, ask a question. I had a question about, I saw the NOBUS trucks around the Riverfront Park site today, and I just wondered if there was any updates on the test pit drilling and that process.
No, just part of that whole testing that they're doing, and hopefully they're projecting, many luck, they'll be done with that testing phase of it by the end of February. And then it's the analyzing and whatnot before we get our report. So no, they said it would be ongoing through, they said mid-February, mid to end of February. So I'm assuming that's, I saw them there too. So yeah, I was pretty excited actually to see them there, to know that it's actually happening. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Chief, anything else for us?
Just the end of last week, we were notified by it's the small rural and tribal departments with the Bureau of Justice that they congratulate us, and they received nearly 1,000 applications for a grant for body cameras. And they were impressed by our commitment to the body worn camera program, and we've been selected to receive a grant pending completion of more documents. So I put a budget in for roughly 20,000. So I'm not sure what that award looks like, but I'm assuming it'll probably be in that neighborhood. So
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Now, does that cover the cost of like storage and all the soups and
does.
nuts that goes with it?
It does,
Okay.
yeah. And I put together a package, and I've got three or four different quotes programs. They're very expensive. But
They are.
The one that I want to go with is it matches and it goes through the one we currently have, but it's a 5-year program.
Right.
Where you get new cameras at 3 years, and then you get new cameras at the 5th year at the end of the project, and you own them.
Wonderful.
But it's a cloud-based program where our prosecutor will have password credentials and be able to grab videos as opposed to us trying to load them and send them.
Absolutely. Well, and just like the redaction of things when
Yes.
juveniles, I mean, it's a very cumbersome process. We were going through it as well.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. But
great. That's awesome.
that's
Good news.
Good news.
Can I have a question to the chief?
Sure.
Is it your dispatchers? How was the word? I generally will call it the PD.
Yep.
If I need an ambulance, okay? The last time I needed, not the last time, time before I needed an ambulance, I was told never to call there again. To call 911. Well, let me tell you, I followed the library 3 weeks ago. I laid on the ground up there for almost a half an hour waiting for an ambulance. I've never waited that long by calling 2238 in my life. But you told me never to call there again.
I think the purpose is if you're disconnected on the 2238 line, if somehow you become disconnected, we can't find you. Did you call by a cell phone or did you call by landline or did who?
Cell phone.
2238, you can't ping your phone to find your location.
So that it's not a don't ever call here again. We want you to call whoever you have to call, but the 911 is preferable in the sense that we can find you in case we lose contact with you. So I don't think it's a matter of don't ever. Of course, we want to answer every call.
I mean, they did, and the library called old phone, landline, 911, and it took over a half hour to get there. And I was laying out in the snow as it was snowing.
I don't know why that is unless the ambulance was out of town and they didn't have backup. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances, but of course we want to get to you as quick as we can. And we're not at the ambulance, but we usually send an officer to every call. Did an officer show up?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, they always show.
But it's not a sense that we don't want you to call us. We want you to call us, but we just want to be able to find you in the event that you're disconnected.
Or God forbid you pass out. You call 2238 and you say, I need help, and then pass out.
Pass out.
They can't find you.
Yeah.
But if you dial 911 and say, I need help, and then pass out, they can ping your phone and find you. So that's why they want you to call 911.
Well, now, I guess my question would be is I have a 781 number. They're going from here in Massachusetts.
It's, they ping the
It's by
radio
GPS.
waves, so
They
yeah,
triangulate by satellite.
By satellite.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Here I am freezing to death. It's stupid me, my car was running. I should have phone shut it off and get me a blanket out of my car.
But there's nothing worse than laying on the cold ground hurt. Oh, nothing
Well,
worse. I
especially when
feel
you're-
for you. It's
Your head to
horrible.
happen in from a plate glass window.
Oh, it's horrible.
And obviously, we're in this business to help people. We don't serve for like.
Oh, it's been pretty brought up here. Massachusetts.
There was no other public participation?
All right, we don't have non-public, so
No.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I thought we had non-public in regards to the tax collector issue.
Oh, we're gonna talk,
I thought we-
not yet. We're gonna wait till,
She was gonna talk to the staff about how they're
Right,
gonna
revamp that,
revamp
yeah.
it, yeah, so that, I mean,
Oh, okay.
we'd only go in there if there was a person, like she was
Right,
gonna
I thought we
hire
were
Yeah,
gonna
no,
talk
we're
X,
not
about-
Y,
at that
Z, we
stage
wanted to talk
I
about
thought
him
we
or
were gonna
her.
talk about the applicant, so-
No.
Okay.
No, we're gonna wait until we see how the applicants fit into what the staff comes up with,
The
so.
new job
So-
description.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye, thank you.